As it happens, in my recent Compaq Evo D500 video, someone wrote in and asked if I could make a video about Dell Dimensions. Well, I haven't really made a habit out of acquiring Dell Dimension systems, although I do have a few of them, both new and old. But today I thought I'd talk about one of my newest ones. This is a Dell Dimension 8300, and quite honestly, this has been the only Dell product that I can ever honestly say I have been dissatisfied with. Well, today I'm getting ready to upgrade and replace an old hard drive in it. It had from the factory a 160 gigabyte Western Digital drive, which I still have to this day, and it still works. I use it in test bench computers. But that drive had been sitting there running basically non-stop since 2004, and so I decided to replace it. I bought this computer around the time of my horrible basement flood, of which you'll see some pictures here. This old 160 gigabyte hard drive is actually a serial ATA design. The Dimension 8300 is an old enough machine that although it didn't sell initially with serial ATA drives, the connectors were there on the motherboard, and toward the end of the model's life, before they replaced it with the 8400, Dell did offer machines with serial ATA drives pre-installed. When I first bought the machine, this was the drive that came with it. This is an old enough drive that although it is a serial ATA design, it has a legacy power plug right there on the end, and it actually is only a serial ATA drive in name only. It has a parallel to serial ATA bridge on the board. So I've replaced that drive, that original 160 gigabyte drive, with a 500 gigabyte Seagate drive. Nothing against Western Digital. Ordinarily they're my favorite drives, but recently I used some MyBook hard drives with that infectious smartware on them. Smartware is a disaster. They have handled it very poorly and not provided the removal tool that a lot of people, myself included, would like to see. And so, although I still like their drives, I'm equally fond of Seagate drives and Samsung drives. And so, they'll get my business because so far when you buy one of their external drives, it's just the facts, ma'am. As I'd said at the beginning of this video, I was dissatisfied with this machine. I have been dissatisfied with it. It's the only Dell product that I've ever been dissatisfied with, mainly because of two things. First of all, when I spec'd this machine out, I was in a hurry to arrive at a working machine. And so I picked a processor at the time without really doing as much homework as I should have. I picked a processor at the time that I thought was a fair balance between price and performance. It ended up being, and this was in about June of 2004, I took delivery of the machine around October, which kind of displeased me, but Dell did step up to the plate and say that the machine was delayed and that I had the option to cancel my order if I wanted, but I didn't. In retrospect and hindsight, I probably should have, but whatever. I spec'd a 3.4 gigahertz Pentium 4 Prescott processor, and what a mistake that was. That Prescott was the hottest running processor I'd ever seen, and it didn't perform particularly well. I could have excused it if it had actually performed well. But it didn't, and so one day, feeling particularly vindictive, I pulled a 2.2 gigahertz, 400 megahertz front-side bus Celeron out of storage, and I swapped it into this machine, and the difference was startling. It was obvious that the Celeron didn't compute as fast, but it was also obvious that it had better performance for most things than did the 3.4 gigahertz Prescott. I didn't leave the Celeron in here. No, instead what I did is I turned to eBay and I found a 2.8 gigahertz Pentium 4 Northwood with an 800 megahertz front-side bus. It is worth noting that 400 megahertz front-side bus processors are not officially supported by this Dell motherboard, which is based on the Intel i875 chipset and the ICH5 Intel I/O controller hub. From the factory, this thing began life with 1 gigabyte of PC 3200 DDR memory. I have expanded that today to 3 gigabytes total, which is really all that's useful in a system that will only ever see 32-bit operating systems. As to the best of my knowledge, there were no 64-bit socket 478 processors ever created. It also began life with a fairly pedestrian NVIDIA graphics card, but one day that thing started to show garbage characters and had trouble shifting modes and doing things like that. I pulled it out. I found that the GPU was cooked even after replacing the capacitors. So I junked that board, ran to Best Buy because again I was in a hurry. I found this ATI Radeon, I believe this is a Radeon X1300 board. Pulls a lot more power than the NVIDIA did, has a dedicated power connection coming to it. But it was about the cheapest thing they had. It was on sale, and it's a very nice little card. Has dual display support, and I have 2 displays hooked up to it. A ViewSonic 19-inch CRT and a Gateway 19-inch flat panel with a DVI-only connection. The Adaptec 2940, a SCSI adapter, I have actually used that for a number of things. Oh, there goes the air conditioning. This is a fast-wide SCSI adapter, very nice piece of hardware. There still is a useless Connexant modem in here, which I made myself no shortage of mad with, no shortage of angry, I guess is a better way to phrase that, because I tried to set up faxing on that thing. I have a fax machine here in relation to some of the stuff that I do, and of course, as such, I'm a victim of junk faxing. Well, as it turns out, both the Windows 2000 and XP operating systems don't support distinctive ringing at all, and although some modems exhibit different ringing patterns or ringing responses in their AT command set if you're watching them through a terminal emulator, this cheap little Connexant Win modem doesn't do that, so it just sits in there unused as punishment, and I have ye old HP OfficeJet Model 500 attending to the faxes since it does the distinctive ringing support in hardware, and unlike a lot of multifunction devices, it can actually receive its faxes to the PC without printing them, so that way I can call all the junk. I had some dreams of maybe doing video and multimedia editing on this machine that were never realized, although I have imported LP records on this machine. I specified a high-quality sound card. This is a Sound Blaster Audigy 2 ZS. And then in the bottom was something I sat on for a long time. This is a Hauppauge Computer Works. No, I take that back. This is an ATI TV Wonder PCI video card and TV tuner. I haven't used it a whole lot. It's still hooked up to the TV system, but there's no converter box or anything, and we don't have cable anymore, so it's pretty much idling. And then over here are the 2 hard drives, both of them serial ATA. The second one was added shortly after I had an almost data disaster, and it's the one that I'm going to replace with the 500 gigabyte Samsung drive today, which shouldn't be too hard. I've got easy ways to move the data off the old drive and put it on the new one, even though this system only has 2 serial ATA channels. The other thing that has dissatisfied me so about this system is no matter the processor, this thing has never felt particularly zippy because it's always had a bad time about getting disk I/O bound, sometimes so badly that you couldn't regain control of it. I don't know if the motherboard's not quite right, I don't know if it's just these older hard drives that are holding me up, but I'd have expected that problem to alleviate itself when I installed the new Seagate drive, and it didn't. So I'm not sure what's going on there. But yeah, as I said, this is really the only Dell system that has ever proven dissatisfactory to me. I'm a pretty big fan of their hardware because usually they do get it right in a lot of ways. For example, this power supply up here, Dell rates this as 305 watts. I've been inside it once to clean the dust out, and it's obvious that it would stand quite a bit more than that if it had to. So there are some good things about this thing, and it didn't put me off of buying Dell machines. There was a final thing that kind of annoyed me a little bit, and that was the fact that Dell cheaped out on this thing. They wouldn't sell me 2 DVD burners, so I had to add the top one myself. It had a zip drive in it when it was new, but that died. I wanted to read some old zip disks that had been sitting in storage, and it lived long enough to do that. They replaced it under warranty. It died again, and I didn't care. So I had to put in my own second DVD burner, which has held up very well. It's an NEC drive. I think it's an ND3500, if I remember correctly. Both of those are parallel ATA. Dell didn't put the audio cables in this machine. leading from the CD drives to the sound card. And so we have one digital SP diff, Sony Philips digital something or another, I don't know what it all stands for, interchange format, I don't know. Been too long since I've looked. But one of them feeds into the Sound Blaster via digital audio output. The other one, although it has the pins, the SP diff interface was non-functional, and so it goes in via analog audio. Anyway, that's pretty much an overview of this Dell Dimension 8300 computer system and what I was planning to do with it. This is actually the kind of thing, you know, I haven't said much about this and don't really want to, but this is the kind of thing that I do with my YouTube partner money, which to date hasn't been a whole crazy pile of money, but it's been nice. You know, it's been nice to be able to upgrade the computers and stuff like that. But please, 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 only click on my ads if you're really interested, and if you find one that's annoying you, please bring it to my attention and I'll deal with it professionally if I can. Thank you for watching.